Art is everywhere you turn.
Our culture is, while it's being driven by digital information, by the emergence of fantastic images in cinema, in video games, our whole culture is being raised on this high-speed, rapid processing of visual information. Meanwhile, our churches are still speaking on a level of words.
Visual artist and educator James Tuggan has been crafting his art for decades. His work has appeared in books, magazines, and most recently on the walls of galleries.
There's no art being taught in the church in general. Just it doesn't happen.
That's partly why he spends hours in this high school classroom at King's Christian Collegiate in Oakville, Ontario.
I have lost count with a number of adults who gave up doing any kind of art because some teacher told them their work wasn't realistic enough or wasn't drawn just the right way.
But poor education isn't where it stops. As co-chair of the 2004 Lausanne Discussions on Arts and Faith, Tuggan identified other challenges, like finding church communities that welcome the arts, providing resources for growing artists, funding arts education, and tackling the apprehensions surrounding the arts.
Christian leadership in churches, pastors and teachers need to be re-educated on a certain level about the importance of the arts and artistic language and biblical thinking. They need to look afresh at their Bibles and see how important this language is in how God has revealed himself.
But he says it's not all up to church leaders.
Artists can learn to be more patient, I think, and more understanding of group process and being accountable in community. That's hard for us sometimes. Sometimes we just want to do our own work, our own thing. I wonder if, could they be growing on the vine, or are they
ultimately, Tuggan envisions a future of cooperation.
I see artists of different kinds working in collaboration with each other and with pastors and ministers.
But what does that look like? How do we get the creative wheels turning? Twice a month, a group of artists called Burnt Offerings gather at Meadowvale Community Church.
It's also been a place where we can kind of dream about things that happen in this space because we're there to support each other.
This church provides space for imagination to flourish. But more than that, it supports the artist.
A few Christmases ago, while Pastor Sam preached about Jesus being formed, I made pots through his message.
For over 25 years, Meadowvale has integrated artists and their work into the church community.
I've gained a lot of confidence. I've improved my technique.
I would not be doing what I'm doing had I not been here. It's as simple as that.
Well, our pastor is an artist in his brain. Although he doesn't paint or draw or anything, he thinks like an artist.
Inviting artists to take center stage is a commitment that wouldn't have happened without the support of its leadership.
We've said we're going to err on the side of freedom and creativity and beauty, and so we said to the artists, go for it.
But it's not just one-sided. Pastor Sam Cooper says art helps feed his flock.
Our artists designed this to remind us that the church suffers. And so every week this is before us and the candle is lit to remind us that there is hope and that the church is a light in dark places and is an agent of the kingdom. These visual things make a connection for people. It's an entryway. It's a way that God gets their attention. It's the Affinity program.
But it hasn't always been easy, especially for those who aren't artistic.
I mean, art isn't always well understood, even in the church. And there are those of us who see it and don't know what to do with it, don't know how to interpret it. Honestly, it's not always easy to understand. I mean, a picture may be worth 1,000 words, but you may not know what words to use.
But in the end, he says it's worth the struggle.
So the artists come along and try to pull us back into our imaginations, which God sanctifies and uses.
Back in the classroom, students aren't the only ones getting an art education.
Tonight is the Levites' charge.
So are their parents.
I think it helps our kids to see us be human.
This is a course for those who don't necessarily see themselves as artists.
Well, my middle daughter is an artist, and I'm a tax accountant by background, so we don't speak the same language. So this was suggested to me as a way of understanding her world better.
I got this from your car, by the way.
For most of these participants, taking part in an art class has brought them closer to God.
God reveals himself to you, and then you start seeing all these little things that you just dismiss as coincidences. You can start seeing God's hand in it.
So maybe you don't have to be a Picasso to create art.
It's very clear from everyone's work here that we have tons of imagery inside of us.
Maybe the arts hold more value to our faith than we think.
Artists can help people understand their Bibles better. Artists can give people expression to their spirituality, to help them grow spiritually.
A rediscovery of art and faith is slowly happening. Up from the streets, out of church sanctuaries, and behind the doors of art studios. There's still lots to be done, but there's no shortage of ideas.
Within faith communities, you can find ways to affirm the arts. A small gallery space, an opportunity for drama.
And looking at who's in your church, look who God has gifted in your church with different things.
Commission art. Ask someone to write something and pay them for it.
It can be very small. It doesn't have to be large.
For the church to see that its mission is one of several missions.
To use mixed uses of metaphor in poetry, music, dance, architecture, costume.
It makes me want to sing the song from Godspell. Prepare ye the way of the Lord. Anyway, that's what I want to say. Prepare the way, but the way is different than what we think.